I was lying on that operating table, staring up at the sterile white ceiling, when my 12-year-old granddaughter's scream tore through the prep room like a knife through silk. But let me back up. Let me tell you how I got there. How a mother's love became a weapon used against her. How trust became the very thing that almost destroyed me. My name is Eleanor Vincent, and I'm 63 years old. For most of my life, I believed that being a good mother meant sacrifice. It meant putting your children first, always. It meant that when they needed you, you showed up, no questions asked, no hesitation, no second thoughts. I was wrong. But before I tell you what my granddaughter revealed that day, before I explain why those words stopped my heart and changed everything, I need you to understand the whole story. The years of manipulation. The carefully constructed lies. The way love can be twisted into something unrecognizable. And if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. Because this story, it's not just mine. It's about what happens when the people closest to you become strangers. When family becomes a minefield. When you realize that sometimes, the person you need to save is yourself. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt used by someone you loved. If you've ever given everything and wondered if it was enough. Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty, about family, about the lengths people will go to get what they want. And check the description box below. I've shared more stories there, real accounts of betrayal and survival that might just help you see your own life differently. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. To a phone call that came on a Tuesday morning in March, when the daffodils were just starting to push through the half-frozen ground outside my kitchen window. The phone rang at 7:30 in the morning, and I knew immediately something was wrong. You know that feeling, don't you? That sudden clenching in your chest when the phone rings at an unusual time? That primal instinct that tells you chaos is about to walk through your carefully ordered life? I was standing at my kitchen counter in my townhouse in Springfield, Massachusetts, grinding coffee beans for my morning ritual. I'd been retired for 2 years by then, 35 years as a pediatric nurse, and I'd earned my quiet mornings. My small garden. My library books. My volunteer work at the community center twice a week. My husband, Richard, had died 4 years earlier. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and brutal. He'd been gone within 6 months of diagnosis, and I'd spent the years since learning how to be alone. Learning that alone didn't have to mean lonely. But that phone call shattered my carefully rebuilt peace. Mom. It was my daughter, Jessica. And her voice was wrong, thin, fragile, soaked with tears. Jessica, honey, what's wrong? Mom, I'm at Memorial Hospital. Mom, I need you. My hands went cold. The coffee grinder stopped, and in the sudden silence, I could hear her ragged breathing through the phone. What happened? Are you hurt? Is it Lily? Lily was my granddaughter, my bright, sharp-eyed 12-year-old who I adored with every fiber of my being. No, Lily's fine. Mom, it's me. They ran tests. So many tests. I've been feeling sick for months, and I kept telling myself it was just stress, just working too hard, but what, Jessica? Tell me. My kidneys are failing, Mom. Both of them. They're calling it bilateral kidney failure, and it's aggressive, and they're saying I need a transplant or I'll. Mom, I'm 38 years old, and they're telling me I might die. The kitchen tilted. I gripped the counter, feeling the cool granite under my palms, anchoring myself to something solid while my world fell apart. I'm coming, I said. I'm getting in my car right now. Which hospital? Memorial on Carew Street. Yes. Mom, hurry. Please hurry. I grabbed my purse, my keys, didn't even bother turning off the coffee maker. My hands shook as I drove through the morning traffic, replaying her words in my mind. Kidney failure. 38 years old. My baby girl, who I'd brought into this world, who I'd nursed through chickenpox and broken hearts and college finals, dying. The hospital parking garage was a concrete maze, and I barely remember finding a spot. I just remember running through the automatic doors, demanding to know where Jessica Vincent was, being directed to the 4th floor, taking the stairs because I couldn't wait for the elevator. I found her in room 427, and my heart broke all over again. She looked so small in that hospital bed. Jessica had always been petite, 5'2", 105 pounds soaking wet, but now she looked diminished. Pale. Her auburn hair, usually so vibrant, looked dull against the white pillow. There were dark circles under her eyes that I hadn't noticed the last time I'd seen her, maybe 3 weeks ago at Sunday dinner. How had I missed this? What kind of mother doesn't notice her child is dying? Mom. She reached for me, and I took her hand. It was cold, so cold. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Tell me everything. That's when I noticed my son-in-law, Trevor, standing by the window. Trevor Hoffman, tall, handsome in that calculated way that had always made me slightly uneasy, with his perfect hair and his expensive suits and his job in investment consulting that I'd never quite understood. He'd been married to Jessica for 15 years. They'd met when she was 23, fresh out of college with a degree in graphic design and stars in her eyes. He was 30 then, already successful, already polished. I'd had my reservations at the wedding. He seemed too smooth, too perfect, but Jessica had been so happy, and Richard had liked him, so I'd pushed my doubts aside. Now, Trevor stepped forward, and something in his expression made my skin crawl. It wasn't grief. It wasn't fear for his wife. It was something else. Something calculating. Eleanor, he said, and I noticed he didn't call me Mom, which he usually did. Thank you for coming so quickly. Of course I came. Jessica, tell me what the doctors said. What are the options? A doctor entered then, a young woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders. Dr. Patricia Reeves, according to her badge. Mrs. Vincent? I'm Dr. Reeves, I'm heading up Jessica's case. Let me explain what we're dealing with here. She pulled up a chair, spoke in that careful way doctors have when the news is bad but they need you to understand it anyway. Jessica has been experiencing what we call rapidly progressive kidney failure. Both kidneys are functioning at less than 15% capacity. We've run extensive tests to determine the cause. It appears to be a combination of an undiagnosed autoimmune condition and some environmental factors we're still investigating. What does that mean? I asked. What can you do? She needs a transplant. Soon. We're talking weeks, not months. We can put her on dialysis to buy time, but her best chance for long-term survival is a kidney transplant from a living donor. Test me, I said immediately. I'm her mother. Test me right now. Dr. Reeves smiled gently. We will. But I need to be honest with you, the testing process usually takes several days. We need to check blood type compatibility, tissue matching, your overall health. You're 63, I said. I'm 63, and I'm healthy. I walk 3 miles every day. I don't smoke, barely drink. I'm in better shape than most people 20 years younger. That's good. That all helps. But we still need to run the tests. If you're willing, we can start drawing blood today. I'm willing. More than willing. Trevor moved closer to the bed. Of course Eleanor is willing. She's Jessica's mother. It's her obligation. The way he said that word, obligation, sent a chill through me. But I pushed it aside. My daughter was dying. This wasn't the time to examine my son-in-law's tone. Where's Lily? I asked. Does she know? She's at school, Jessica said, her voice barely above a whisper. We didn't want to scare her until we knew more. Trevor's going to pick her up this afternoon and explain everything. I spent the rest of that day at the hospital. They drew what felt like gallons of blood from me, took my medical history, asked 1,000 questions. Dr. Reeves explained that even if I was a match, there were risks. Surgery always carries risks, especially for someone my age. But I didn't care about risks. I cared about saving my daughter. By evening, I was exhausted. Trevor insisted on walking me to my car. Eleanor, he said as we stood in the parking garage, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, I want you to know how much this means. To Jessica. To our family. She's my daughter, Trevor. There's nothing I wouldn't do for her. I know. That's what makes you such a good mother. He paused, and something flickered across his face, something I couldn't quite read. We're going to need you to be that good mother now more than ever. No matter what. I drove home in the dark, his words echoing in my mind. There was something off about them, about him, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe it was fear for his wife. Or maybe, some part of me already knew. Maybe some part of me already sensed that Trevor Hoffman was not the man I thought he was. That this entire situation was not what it appeared to be. That I was walking into a trap so perfectly constructed, so carefully designed, that by the time I realized what was happening, it would almost be too late. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The tests came back 3 days later. I was a match. Perfect match, actually. Dr. Reeves called it remarkably compatible. My blood type was O negative, universal donor. My tissue markers aligned almost perfectly with Jessica's. My health screenings came back clean. At 63, I was apparently an ideal kidney donor. This is extraordinary news, Dr. Reeves said when she called me. We can schedule the surgery as early as next week. The sooner we proceed, the better Jessica's chances. Next week. 7 days to prepare for major surgery. 7 days to get my affairs in order, to arrange for someone to take care of my house and garden while I recovered. 7 days to try not to think about the risks, the what-ifs, the possibility that something could go wrong. But none of that mattered. Jessica needed me, and I would be there. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why Jessica's decline had been so sudden. I should have paid attention to the way Trevor hovered, always present, always controlling the narrative of what was happening. I should have trusted my instincts. But I didn't. Because I was a mother, and my child was dying, and love makes you blind to danger. God, how it makes you blind. The week before the surgery passed in a blur of preparation and paperwork. I met with Dr. Reeves multiple times. She walked me through every step of the procedure, how they would remove one of my kidneys laparoscopically, how Jessica would be in the operating room next door, how the transplant team would work to minimize the time the kidney was outside a body. She explained the recovery process for both of us, the medications, the follow-up care. You're saving your daughter's life, she said to me during one of these meetings. That's an incredible gift. But it didn't feel like a gift. It felt like what any mother would do. Like the most basic, fundamental act of love imaginable. Jessica was deteriorating rapidly. She'd started dialysis 3 times a week, and each session left her exhausted and nauseous. Her skin had taken on a grayish tinge. Her eyes, once so bright and full of life, had dimmed. I visited her every day. Sometimes Trevor was there, sometimes he wasn't. He'd been dealing with work issues, Jessica explained, though she seemed vague about the details. It was during one of these visits, when Trevor was absent and Jessica was dozing after dialysis, that Lily came to sit beside me in the hospital room. My granddaughter, Lily Hoffman. 12 years old, with her mother's auburn hair and something else, a sharpness, an intensity that reminded me of myself at that age. She was small for 12, still caught in that awkward space between childhood and adolescence, wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie with a band name I didn't recognize. "Grandma," she said quietly, so as not to wake her mother. "Yes, sweetheart. Are you scared? About the surgery?" I reached over and took her hand. "A little. But more than that, I'm determined. Your mom is going to be okay." Lily bit her lip. She had something to say, I could tell. Something weighing on her. "What is it, honey?" "Nothing. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you can help her." There was something in her voice, though. A hesitation. A shadow. "Lily, if there's something you want to tell me." "Mrs. Hoffman." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to prep Jessica for her next round of labs." The moment passed. Lily pulled her hand away, stood up, mumbled something about homework and left the room. I told myself it was nothing. She was 12. Her mother was sick. Of course she was struggling with complicated emotions. But that conversation stayed with me. The way Lily had looked at me. Like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Like she was carrying a secret too heavy for her small shoulders. Trevor invited me to dinner 2 nights before the surgery. "Just family," he said. "Jessica's feeling a bit better today. The dialysis helped. We thought it would be nice to have you over. Lily misses you." They lived in a beautiful colonial in one of Springfield's nicer suburbs, West Ridge Estates, all manicured lawns and 2-car garages and the kind of quiet that comes from money. Trevor's investment consulting business had clearly been lucrative. The house was easily worth $750,000, maybe more. I pulled into their circular driveway at 6:30, carrying a homemade apple pie because that's what grandmothers do, right? We show up with food and love and the belief that everything will be okay. Jessica answered the door, and I was shocked by how much better she looked. There was color in her cheeks. Her eyes were brighter. She was wearing makeup for the first time in weeks. "Mom." She hugged me, and she felt less fragile than she had in the hospital. Thank you for coming. This means everything. The house smelled like roasted chicken and herbs. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. We ate in their formal dining room, a room I'd only been in a handful of times over the years. Trevor had set the table with their wedding china. There were candles. Wine glasses, though Jessica couldn't drink. Trevor was charming through dinner. Attentive. He asked about my volunteer work, my garden, my plans for after I recovered from surgery. He told stories about work, about a big deal he'd just closed, about how things were really coming together for their family. Lily was quiet. She pushed food around her plate and watched her father with an expression I couldn't quite read. You okay, sweetheart? I asked her. She looked up, startled. Yeah. Yeah. Lily's been stressed, Trevor said smoothly. About her mother's illness. About the surgery. It's a lot for a young girl to process. Of course it is. I reached across the table and squeezed Lily's hand. But everything's going to be fine. In 2 days, your mom gets a new kidney, and then we all start healing. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She pulled her hand away and stood up abruptly. May I be excused? Lily, Jessica started. Please. I have homework. She left before anyone could stop her. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of a door closing upstairs. She's really struggling, Jessica said softly. This has been so hard on her. She'll be okay once everything's behind us, Trevor said. He refilled my wine glass, topped off his own. Kids are resilient. Lily's tough. But I wasn't thinking about resilience. I was thinking about the look in my granddaughter's eyes. About the way she'd pulled away from me. About the feeling that something was wrong here, in this perfect house with its perfect dinner and its carefully orchestrated normalcy. After dessert, I excused myself to use the bathroom. But instead of going to the powder room downstairs, I climbed the stairs to the second floor. I know it was wrong. But something was pulling me, some instinct I couldn't ignore. Lily's bedroom was at the end of the hall, door closed. I could see light under the door. I knocked softly. Lily? Honey, it's Grandma. Can I come in? Silence. Then, okay. I opened the door to find her sitting on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Oh, sweetheart. I sat beside her, pulled her into my arms. She resisted for a moment, then collapsed against me, sobbing. It's okay, I whispered. It's okay to be scared. But your mom is going to be okay. I promise. That's not. She pulled back, wiped her face with her sleeve. Grandma, I need to tell you something. My heart started pounding. What is it? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Looked at the door like she was afraid someone might hear. Lily, whatever it is, you can tell me. It's about Dad. About Mom. About Lily. Trevor's voice boomed from downstairs. Come help clear the table. Lily flinched. The moment shattered. I have to go, she whispered. Wait. But she was already up, already moving past me, already shutting down whatever she'd been about to reveal. I sat there on her bed for a long moment, staring at her walls covered with posters and photos and ribbons from school achievements. Something was wrong. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong, and I was missing it. When I came back downstairs, Trevor was washing dishes in the kitchen. Jessica was on the couch, exhausted. Lily had disappeared somewhere. Thank you for dinner, I said, gathering my purse. It was lovely. Eleanor. Trevor dried his hands, walked me to the door. Before you go, I want to make sure you understand how much this surgery means to our family. How much you're sacrificing. I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm saving my daughter. Of course. Of course you are. But still, it's a big thing you're doing. And I want you to know that we'll never forget it. That Jessica and I will always be grateful. That you're doing exactly what a mother should do. There was that word again. Should. Like there was some script I was supposed to follow. Some role I was playing. I drove home through the dark streets, my mind spinning. What had Lily been about to tell me? Why did Trevor seem so controlling, so carefully orchestrated? Why did this whole situation feel like a stage play where everyone knew their lines except me? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. That stress and fear were making me paranoid. That I was just a worried mother with an overactive imagination. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial. Something hiding just beneath the surface of this carefully constructed reality. If you've ever had that feeling, that sense that the people around you are lying, that the truth is dancing just out of reach, then you know how maddening it is. How it eats at you. How you start to question your own sanity. I almost called off the surgery. I swear to you, I almost picked up the phone at 3 in the morning and told Dr. Reeves I needed more time. That something wasn't right. That I needed to understand what was happening before I let them cut into me. But then I thought about Jessica. About her grey skin and her exhausted eyes and the way she'd looked in that hospital bed. My daughter was dying. What kind of mother lets her child die because of vague suspicions and unexplained feelings? So I didn't call. I didn't postpone. I told myself I was being ridiculous. And the next day, I showed up at the hospital for my pre-surgery appointment, ready to give my daughter my kidney and save her life. I had no idea that I was about to discover the truth. I had no idea that my 12-year-old granddaughter was the only person brave enough to stop a tragedy. I had no idea that in less than 24 hours, everything I believed about my family would be destroyed. The morning before surgery, I woke to find frost on my windows and a strange calm in my chest. This was it. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., I would be wheeled into an operating room. They would put me under anesthesia. They would cut into me. They would remove one of my kidneys and put it into my daughter's body. And then, if everything went according to plan, we would both heal. Jessica would get her life back. I would recover, adjust to life with one kidney, and we would all move forward. Simple. Straightforward. Life-saving. So why did I feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff? I'd been instructed not to eat anything after midnight. No water after 4 a.m. I had to be at the hospital by 5:30 for prep. Dr. Reeves had called the day before to go over everything one last time, to make sure I understood the risks, the recovery timeline, the potential complications. "You're doing a beautiful thing," she'd said. "Jessica is lucky to have you." But I didn't feel beautiful. I felt uneasy, unsettled. Like the universe was trying to tell me something and I was too stubborn or too scared to listen. I spent the day preparing my house for my absence. I watered my plants, took out the trash, left detailed instructions for my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, no, wait. Mrs. Patterson. Mrs. Helen Patterson, who'd offered to collect my mail and keep an eye on things while I was in the hospital. I packed a small bag, toiletries, comfortable clothes, the mystery novel I'd been trying to finish for weeks. I laid out the clothes I'd wear to the hospital. I went through my important documents, made sure everything was in order, just in case. You always do that before major surgery, right? You prepare for the worst even while hoping for the best. You make sure your will is updated, your passwords are written down somewhere, your loved ones know where to find everything important. I'd done this before Richard's surgery, back when the cancer was first diagnosed and they tried to operate. Before we knew it was too late. The parallel made me shudder. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mom? How are you feeling?" "I'm okay, honey. Ready. How about you?" Nervous. Excited. Grateful. All of it. Her voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. The dialysis was helping, buying us time. "Trevor wanted me to call and make sure you got all the pre-surgery instructions." "I did. Everything's set. I'll see you tomorrow morning." "Mom." She paused. "I don't know how to thank you for this." "You don't have to thank me. You're my daughter. I'd give you anything." I know you would. That's why." Another pause. "That's why this means so much." Something in her voice made my chest tighten. A quality I couldn't name. Almost like guilt. "Jessica, are you okay?" Yes, of course. Just emotional. Surgery is tomorrow. It's a lot." We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, trying to shake the strange feeling her call had left me with. That evening, I got another visitor. The doorbell rang just after 7. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. Lily, my granddaughter, was standing on my porch in the dark, wearing a jacket too thin for the weather, her breath visible in the cold air. I yanked the door open. "Lily? What are you doing here? Does your father know where you are?" She shook her head. "No. I told him I was going to Emma's house to study. Please, Grandma, I need to talk to you." Come in. You're freezing." I pulled her inside, closed the door against the cold. "What's going on? Is something wrong with your mother?" "No. Mom's okay. It's... Grandma, I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise you'll listen. Really listen." My hands went cold. Okay, let's sit down." We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd sat with Richard through countless quiet evenings, where I'd built my new life after he died. The lamp in the corner cast warm light over Lily's pale face. "Tell me," I said gently. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." She took a deep breath. "It's about the surgery. About Mom needing a kidney." "What about it?" "Grandma." Tears filled her eyes. "Mom isn't sick. I mean, she is now, because of the dialysis and everything, but before all this, she wasn't sick." The world tilted. "What? Lily, what are you talking about? Of course she's sick. Her kidneys are failing." "Yes. But that's not... Grandma, they did something to make her sick." "They? Who's they?" "Dad. And Mom. I overheard them talking. Weeks ago, before Mom went to the hospital. They were in Dad's office, and they thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. I was getting water, and I heard them through the door." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. "What did you hear?" "Dad said they needed money. A lot of money. He said his business was in trouble, that he'd made some bad investments, that people were threatening him. And Mom was crying, asking what they were going to do. And Dad said..." She sobbed. "Dad said they'd figure something out. That there were ways to make quick money if you were willing to do certain things." "Lily, I don't understand. What does this have to do with..." I didn't understand either. Not then. But then, a couple weeks later, Mom started getting sick. Really sick. And it was so sudden, Grandma. One day she was fine, and the next she was throwing up and tired all the time. And Dad was always giving her water, these special protein shakes he said would help her feel better. But she kept getting worse. My mouth had gone dry. "Lily, what are you saying?" "I'm saying Dad made Mom sick on purpose. I think he put something in her drinks. Something that made her kidneys fail." "That's impossible. Lily, that's a very serious accusation." I know it sounds crazy. But Grandma, I heard them fighting 2 nights ago. After you left from dinner. I was upstairs, and they were in their bedroom, and the walls are thin. Dad said, "We're so close. Eleanor's a perfect match. A few more days and we'll have the money we need." And Mom said, "I can't believe we're really doing this." And Dad said, "It's too late to back out now." The room was spinning. "Money? What money? Lily, organs can't be sold. It's illegal." "I know. But I looked it up on my phone. The black market for kidneys, it's real, Grandma. People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for organs. And Dad has been meeting with these men. I've seen them come to the house late at night. Men in expensive suits who don't look like his regular clients." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This was insane. This couldn't be real. "Lily, honey, I think you're confused. You're stressed about your mother being sick, and you overheard some conversations you didn't fully understand, and your mind is..." "I'm not making this up." She was crying now, desperate. "Grandma, please. I think Dad is planning to sell your kidney. I think that's why he's been so insistent about you being a match, about the surgery happening quickly. I think he poisoned Mom to make her sick so you would agree to donate, and then he's going to sell the kidney to someone else instead of giving it to Mom." "But that's impossible. Dr. Reeves would know. The surgical team would know. You can't just steal an organ in the middle of a hospital." "I don't know how he's planning to do it. But Grandma, I'm scared. I'm really scared. What if I'm right? What if you go into surgery tomorrow and something bad happens?" I sat there, staring at my granddaughter, trying to process what she was telling me. It was ludicrous. It was the kind of thing you saw in movies, not real life. Trevor was my son-in-law. Jessica was my daughter. They couldn't. But then I thought about Trevor's careful words. His insistence on my obligation. The way he'd been controlling every aspect of this situation. The expensive house, the perfect life, the vague explanations about his business. I thought about Jessica's strange tone on the phone earlier. The guilt in her voice. I thought about how quickly her illness had progressed. How sudden it had been. Grandma. Lily's voice was small, frightened. Do you believe me? Did I? Could I believe that my own daughter would participate in something so monstrous? That she would let her mother donate a kidney under false pretenses? That she would risk my life for money? But if I didn't believe Lily, if I dismissed her concerns and went through with the surgery and she was right? I don't know, I said honestly. Lily, this is a lot to process. I need to think. There's no time to think. Surgery is tomorrow morning. Grandma, please don't do this. Not until we know the truth. But if I don't do it, and you're wrong, your mother could die. And if I'm right, and you do it, you could die. We sat there in terrible silence, the weight of impossible choices crushing down on both of us. Finally, I said, I need proof. If what you're saying is true, I need proof. How are we going to get proof? I don't know. But Lily, if you're right, if there's even a chance you're right, we have to find out before tomorrow morning. She nodded, wiping her tears. What do we do? And here's where I did something I'm not proud of. Something desperate and possibly illegal. We're going to your house, I said. We're going to search your father's office. If you're watching this and you've ever been in a position where you had to choose between following the rules and protecting yourself or someone you love, you understand. You understand that sometimes, you have to break the rules to survive. And right then, sitting in my living room with my terrified granddaughter, I realized I'd been playing by rules that no one else was following. I'd been trusting blindly while others were scheming. I'd been the perfect mother, the perfect donor, the perfect mark. It was time to stop being perfect and start being smart. We left for Trevor's house 20 minutes later, armed with nothing but determination and the faint, desperate hope that Lily was wrong. She wasn't. Trevor and Jessica's house was dark when we arrived. Lily had texted her father from my phone, pretending to be me, saying she needed to pick up some paperwork from their house for the hospital. Trevor had responded immediately, doors unlocked. We're at Mom's final dialysis session. Back around 10. That gave us maybe 90 minutes. My hands shook as I turned the doorknob and stepped into their foyer. The house that had seemed so perfect 2 nights ago now felt sinister. Every shadow held potential danger. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart jump. His office is upstairs, Lily whispered. End of the hall, past the master bedroom. We climbed the stairs in the dark, not wanting to turn on lights that might alert neighbors. Lily led the way, her phone's flashlight creating a small circle of illumination. Trevor's office was locked. Of course it was locked. Why wouldn't it be? We'd come all this way, and the one room we needed to access was sealed behind a solid oak door. I know where he keeps a spare key, Lily said. She disappeared into the master bedroom, rummaged through a dresser drawer, came back with a small silver key. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Trevor's office was exactly what you'd expect from a successful consultant. Mahogany desk, leather chair, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with business books and framed photos. 2 computer monitors on the desk, both dark. Filing cabinets against one wall. Start with the filing cabinets, I said. Look for anything financial. Bank statements, investment records, anything that might show money problems. We worked quickly, desperately. Lily took the filing cabinets while I booted up his computer, hoping he hadn't logged out or password protected everything. Luck was with us. Or maybe Trevor was arrogant enough to think no one would dare search his office. The computer opened to his desktop, dozens of folders, spreadsheets, documents scattered across the screen. I started clicking through files, my hands trembling so badly I could barely control the mouse. Business proposals. Client contracts. Investment portfolios. Everything looked legitimate at first glance. Then I found a folder labeled JV Medical. JV. Jessica Vincent. My daughter's initials. I opened it. Inside were dozens of documents. Medical records, Jessica's medical records, but they didn't match what Dr. Reeves had told me. These showed a different timeline. Different symptoms. Different everything. There were also emails. Hundreds of them. I started reading, and my blood turned to ice. The first email was from 6 months ago, addressed to someone named Dmitry Volkov. Trevor had written, "I have a potential donor. Female, early 60s, excellent health, universal blood type. She's family, so she'll be willing and won't ask questions. What's the current rate for O negative?" The response, 4 clean kidney, healthy donor, mature age, $300,000 USD. But you need recipient ready. We don't hold inventory. Time is critical. I clicked through more emails, barely able to comprehend what I was reading. Trevor explaining that he needed time to prepare the donor. Dmitry providing contact information for doctors who could facilitate the black market transfer. Trevor asking about how to induce kidney failure in someone without it being traced. Dmitry responding with detailed instructions involving certain medications, dosages, timing. I was going to be sick. Grandma. Lily's voice was shaking. Grandma, I found something. She was holding a folder stuffed with papers. Bank statements showing Trevor's accounts deep in the red. Investment records showing massive losses. Letters from creditors threatening legal action. A notice from the IRS about unpaid taxes totaling over $2 million. And then, at the bottom of the pile, a contract. A contract with Dmitry Volkov for the sale of 1 healthy kidney, O-negative blood type, from a 63-year-old female donor. Price, $300,000. Payment terms, half upfront, half on delivery. Attached to the contract was a note in Trevor's handwriting. Eleanor agrees to surgery April 10th. Dimitri's surgical team will intercept organ during transfer between operating rooms. Hospital team will be told there was a complication, organ non-viable for Jessica. Eleanor's kidney goes to Dimitri's buyer. Jessica receives O-negative kidney from Dimitri's source, already secured. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. I read those words 3 times before their full meaning hit me. Trevor had poisoned my daughter, his own wife, to create a medical crisis. He'd manipulated me into agreeing to donate my kidney. He'd arranged for my kidney to be stolen during the surgery and sold to someone on the black market. And Jessica would receive a different kidney, probably from some other victim of this horrific scheme. But that wasn't even the worst part. I kept reading. There was another document, buried deeper in the folder. A medical report from one of Dimitri's doctors. It detailed the complications that sometimes occurred during these illicit organ transfers. How donors sometimes died on the table. How that wasn't really a problem because dead donors couldn't report what had happened. And there was a note, stamped in red, donor age risk, high. Recommend careful monitoring. If complications occur, eliminate rather than revive. Cleaner that way. Eliminate. They were planning to let me die if anything went wrong. To make sure I couldn't expose what they'd done. My daughter knew about this. She had to know. She was part of it. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I doubled over, gasping, unable to breathe. Grandma. Lily grabbed my arm. Grandma, are you okay? Your mother, I managed to say. Lily, your mother knows. She's part of this. Lily's face crumpled. No. No, Mom wouldn't, she couldn't. But even as she said it, I could see the doubt in her eyes. She'd heard the fighting. She'd heard Jessica say, I can't believe we're really doing this. Not I can't believe you're doing this. My daughter was willing to sacrifice me for money. The woman I'd carried for 9 months, nursed through every illness, supported through every challenge, loved with every fiber of my being, was planning to steal my kidney and possibly let me die in the process. We have to call the police, Lily whispered. Right now. We have to stop this. I looked at my watch. 8:45. Trevor and Jessica would be back soon. Yes, I said, my voice hollow. Yes, we need to call the police. But first, I need to take photos of everything. All of it. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence. I pulled out my phone and started photographing. The emails. The contract. The bank statements. The medical report with its casual mention of eliminating inconvenient donors. All of it. Lily helped, using her phone to capture documents while I worked on the computer files. We moved like machines, systematic and thorough, documenting the entire horrific scheme. I was photographing the last page of the contract when we heard it. A car door slamming outside. Lily and I froze, staring at each other in the dim light of the office. "They're home," she breathed. "They're home early." I checked my watch again. 9:10. They shouldn't be back for another 45 minutes at least. We heard the front door open. Voices downstairs. "Lily." Trevor's voice, calling up the stairs. "Lily, are you home? Emma's mother just called asking where you were." Lily's eyes went wide with terror. We'd been caught. I grabbed her hand, my mind racing. We were upstairs in Trevor's office with evidence of his crimes spread across the desk. The computer was still on, the files still open. There was no way to hide what we'd been doing. "Lily." Trevor's voice was closer now. He was climbing the stairs. I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled Lily into Trevor's closet, a walk-in space filled with expensive suits and shoes. We crouched behind a row of winter coats, my phone clutched in my hand, trying to breathe silently. The office door opened. Through the crack in the closet door, I could see Trevor enter. He stopped dead, staring at his desk, at the open files, at the filing cabinet drawer we'd left ajar. "What the hell?" Jessica appeared behind him. Even through the narrow opening, I could see the color drain from her face. "Trevor, someone's been in here." "Obviously someone's been in here. The question is who?" "Lily." They left the office, footsteps pounding down the hall. We heard them searching the house, calling for Lily, their voices getting more panicked. "This is our chance," I whispered. "We run. Now." We emerged from the closet, moved as quietly as possible toward the office door. I could hear Trevor and Jessica downstairs, still searching, arguing with each other about what to do. We made it to the stairs. Started descending, step by careful step. We were almost to the front door when Jessica appeared at the bottom of the stairs. For a moment, we all just stared at each other. Mother and daughter. Grandmother and granddaughter. A family torn apart by greed and lies. "Mom," Jessica said, and her voice was strange. Flat. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same question," I said. My voice was steady despite the terror coursing through me. "You're supposed to be at dialysis." Session was cancelled. They had an emergency. We came home early. She looked past me to Lily. "Lily, go to your room." "No," Lily said, pressing closer to me. "I'm staying with Grandma." Trevor appeared behind Jessica, and the look on his face made my blood run cold. This wasn't the charming son-in-law who made small talk at family dinners. This was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. "You've been in my office," he said quietly. "What did you see, Eleanor?" "Everything," I said. "I saw everything, Trevor. The emails. The contract. The plan to steal my kidney and sell it. The fact that you poisoned your own wife to make this happen." Jessica made a small sound, almost like a whimper. "It's not what you think," Trevor said, taking a step forward. I instinctively moved back, pushing Lily behind me. We were desperate. I made some bad investments. We were going to lose everything, the house, our savings, our entire lives. This was the only way out. The only way out was to kill me. "We weren't going to kill you. That document you saw, that was just standard risk assessment. We were going to make sure you were safe. Don't lie to me." My voice cracked. I read what it said. Eliminate rather than revive. You were willing to let me die on that operating table to cover up what you'd done. "Mom, please." Jessica's voice was pleading now. "Please try to understand. We didn't want to hurt you. We love you. But we were drowning." Trevor owed people money. Dangerous people. They were threatening our family. Threatening Lily. "So you decided to sacrifice me instead." We thought it would be okay. You're healthy. You'd recover. And we'd have the money we needed. Everyone would win. Everyone except me." I was shaking now, with rage and fear and heartbreak. "I was giving you my kidney to save your life, Jessica. I was willing to risk major surgery because I thought my daughter was dying. And this whole time, it was a setup. A con. You made yourself sick. You manipulated me. You were planning to steal my organ and sell it like I'm nothing but spare parts." "You're not nothing," Jessica said, tears streaming down her face. "You're my mother. I love you." You don't love me. If you loved me, you couldn't do this. Trevor moved suddenly, reaching for his phone. This has gotten out of hand. We need to figure out how to manage this situation. Manage? I pulled out my own phone. There's nothing to manage, Trevor. I'm calling the police. Right now. He lunged forward, trying to grab my phone. I stumbled backward, and Lily screamed. Don't touch her. Lily threw herself between Trevor and me. Don't you dare touch my grandmother. Everything happened so fast then. Trevor shoving Lily aside. Me grabbing for my granddaughter. Jessica screaming at Trevor to stop. The front door crashing open. A woman's voice. Freeze. Police. I blinked, disoriented. How were the police here? We hadn't called them yet. But standing in the doorway, with 2 uniformed officers behind her, was Detective Laura Brennan of the Springfield Police Department. I'd met her once, years ago, at a community safety event at the center where I volunteered. Eleanor Vincent, she said. Are you all right? How did you know to come here? Your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. You told her you'd be at the hospital prepping for surgery, but she saw you leave your house with a young girl and followed you. When she saw you go into this house and then saw the lights go on upstairs, she got worried and called us. She thought you might be in danger. Thank God for nosy neighbors. The next hours were a blur. More police arrived. Trevor and Jessica were handcuffed, read their rights, taken away in separate patrol cars. Jessica was crying, calling my name, begging me to understand. Trevor was silent, his face a mask. Lily and I gave our statements. I showed Detective Brennan the photos on my phone. She called for a warrant to seize Trevor's computer and files. You're lucky, she told me as paramedics checked us over. People involved in organ trafficking, these are dangerous criminals. If you'd gone through with that surgery tomorrow. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I could have died. Would have died, probably. A 63-year-old woman with surgical complications, a tragic accident, and my kidney would have gone to the highest bidder while Trevor and Jessica walked away with $300,000. What happens now? I asked. Now? We investigate. We arrest everyone involved in this scheme. And you? She paused. You go home. You rest. And you try to process what just happened. But how do you process something like this? How do you wrap your mind around the fact that your own daughter tried to kill you for money? I took Lily home with me that night. Child services arrived, talked about temporary placement, but Detective Brennan intervened. The grandmother is the victim here, and clearly the child trusted her enough to reveal the plot. Let the girl stay with her while we sort this out. So Lily and I sat in my living room as midnight approached, drinking hot chocolate, neither of us able to speak about what had just happened. Finally, Lily said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was scared. I thought maybe I was wrong, or that no one would believe me, or... You saved my life, I said, pulling her close. Lily, you saved my life. Don't apologize. Don't ever apologize. But I was thinking about tomorrow. About the surgery that wouldn't happen now. About the operating room I wouldn't be wheeled into. About the daughter I'd almost died for. About the fact that I'd been lying on that operating table, metaphorically speaking, for weeks now. Waiting. Trusting. Ready to give everything. And if it wasn't for a 12-year-old girl's courage, I would have given everything. My kidney. My life. My trust in the people I loved most. The betrayal was complete. The pain was overwhelming. But I was alive. And tomorrow, I would have to figure out how to keep living in a world where my daughter had tried to murder me. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica's face. Not the face from the police car, streaked with tears and makeup. But younger faces. Jessica at 5, gap-toothed and laughing. Jessica at 16, getting ready for prom. Jessica in her wedding dress, radiant with hope. How does the little girl you raised become someone capable of this? Lily slept fitfully on my couch, curled under one of Richard's old quilts that still smelled faintly of his cologne. I sat in the chair across from her, watching her sleep, marveling at her bravery. At 12 years old, she'd risked everything to save me. She'd seen something wrong and spoken up, even knowing it would destroy her family. My phone buzzed constantly throughout the night. Detective Brennan with updates. My neighbor Mrs. Patterson, worried sick. Numbers I didn't recognize, reporters, I realized, who'd somehow already gotten wind of the story. I turned off my phone eventually, unable to deal with any of it. As dawn broke, grey and cold, I made coffee. Real coffee, strong and black, none of that half-calf nonsense I'd been drinking lately in some misguided attempt to be healthier. What was the point of being healthy if your own child wanted you dead? Lily stirred around 7, blinking awake in the pale morning light. Grandma. I'm here, sweetheart. She sat up, and for a moment confusion crossed her face, like she couldn't remember why she was at my house. Then reality crashed back in. I watched her face crumple, watched her relive it all over again. It really happened, she whispered. Mom and Dad really were going to. Yes, I said, because there was no point in softening it. Yes, it really happened. What's going to happen to them? I don't know. Prison, I imagine. For a long time. She started crying then, the kind of deep, wrenching sobs that come from the core of you. I held her while she cried, while she grieved for the parents she'd thought she had, for the family that had just imploded, for the childhood that ended the moment she overheard that conversation in Trevor's office. My phone rang at 8:30. I turned it back on, knowing I couldn't hide from the world forever. It was Detective Brennan. Mrs. Vincent. Sorry to call so early. I wanted to update you on the case. We executed the warrant on Trevor Hoffman's office and computers last night. What we found, it's worse than we thought. Worse? How could it possibly be worse? Trevor wasn't working alone. This Dmitry Volkov character, we've been tracking him for 2 years. He runs an international organ trafficking ring. Trevor's scheme with your kidney was just one of dozens he's orchestrated. We're talking about organs from desperate people, forged medical documents, corrupt doctors. It's massive. And Jessica? I had to force myself to ask. What's her involvement? Detective Brennan hesitated. She claims she didn't know the full extent. That Trevor told her they'd make some money by helping facilitate a donation, but she didn't know it was black market. She's saying she thought it was some kind of legal donation for compensation scheme. Do you believe her? Does it matter what I believe? The evidence will tell the story. But Mrs. Vincent, we found emails between Jessica and Volkov too. Not as many as Trevor's, but enough to establish that she knew exactly what was happening. She even asked Volkov whether the buyer for your kidney had been properly vetted. Those were her words. I felt hollow. Empty. Like something vital had been carved out of me and I was just a shell now, going through the motions of being alive. There's something else, Detective Brennan continued. The medical examiner looked at Jessica's lab results from the hospital. The kidney failure? It was definitely induced. She was poisoned with a substance called aristolochic acid. It's found in certain herbal supplements, causes rapid kidney damage. Trevor ordered it online from a supplier in China 6 months ago. 6 months. They'd been planning this for 6 months. While I was babysitting Lily on weekends, while we were having Sunday dinners, while I was living my quiet retired life, they were plotting to kill me and harvest my organs. We're also looking into whether this was their first attempt at something like this. Trevor's business records show similar financial problems going back 3 years. We're investigating to see if there might be other victims. Other victims. Other mothers. Other families destroyed by greed. When do I have to testify? I asked. I assume there will be a trial. Eventually, yes. But first, the arraignment. That's scheduled for tomorrow. If you want to make a victim impact statement. I don't know what I want, I said honestly. I don't know anything anymore. After we hung up, I sat there staring at nothing. Lily had gone upstairs to shower, using the guest bathroom with its blue towels and seashell soap dispenser that I'd picked out thinking about the grandchildren who might visit. I'd built this life around family. Around being a good mother, a good grandmother. And now that foundation was gone, crumbled to dust, and I didn't know how to rebuild. The days that followed were surreal. The story hit the news, local first, then regional, then national. Daughter and son-in-law accused of plotting to harvest mother's kidney for black market sale. I stopped reading the articles after the first few. They got the facts right but missed the soul of it. The betrayal. The grief. The way trust, once shattered, cuts you from the inside. People I hadn't talked to in years called. Friends from my nursing days. former neighbors. The community center where I volunteered released a statement supporting me. The attention was overwhelming and exhausting. Lily stayed with me. Child services came by, talked about foster care arrangements, but I fought for her. She's my granddaughter. She saved my life. She's staying with me. It helped that Detective Brennan vouched for me, explaining that Lily had been the one to uncover the plot. The caseworker, a tired woman named Denise Roberts with kind eyes, agreed to temporary custody. The child has been through trauma, she told me. She's going to need therapy, possibly medication for anxiety or depression. Her whole world just collapsed. I know, I said. Mine did too. We'll figure it out together. So Lily moved into my guest room. We established routines, breakfast together, walks in the morning, quiet time in the afternoon. She enrolled in a new school, away from her old neighborhood where everyone knew what had happened. I found her a therapist, a gentleman named Dr. William Foster who specialized in childhood trauma. And slowly, carefully, we started to heal. But healing isn't linear. It's not a straight path from broken to whole. It's messy and complicated and full of setbacks. 2 weeks after the arrest, I got a call from the Springfield Women's Correctional Facility. Mrs. Vincent, you have a call from inmate Jessica Hoffman. Will you accept the charges? My hand tightened on the phone. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up. But some part of me, the mother part that refuses to die no matter how much it should, needed to hear her voice. Yes, I said. I'll accept. There was a click, then, Mom. Jessica's voice was small, broken, nothing like the polished woman who'd manipulated me so expertly. Don't call me that, I said. You don't get to call me that anymore. Mom, please. Please, I need to explain. Explain what? How you poisoned yourself to manipulate me into giving you my kidney. How you planned to sell my organ to the highest bidder. How you were willing to let me die to cover up your scheme. I didn't want you to die. I swear, I didn't want that. Trevor said you'd be fine, that it was a routine surgery, that the risks were minimal. Stop lying. My voice cracked. You knew, Jessica. Detective Brennan showed me the emails. You knew exactly what you were doing. Silence on the other end. Then, softly, we were desperate. You don't understand how desperate we were. So you decided to kill your mother? That was your solution. We weren't going to kill you. We needed the money. Trevor owed people. Bad people. They were threatening us. Threatening Lily. Lily is safe now. Safe from you and Trevor. I have custody of her. Another long pause. When Jessica spoke again, her voice was different. Harder. You turned my daughter against me. I saved your daughter from becoming an accessory to murder. She saved my life, Jessica. Your 12-year-old daughter had more courage and morality than you've shown in years. She doesn't understand. She's a child. She doesn't understand that sometimes you have to make impossible choices. There was nothing impossible about your choice. You chose money over your mother's life. You chose greed over love. You made yourself sick, put yourself through dialysis, terrified your own daughter, all for $300,000. Do you hear how insane that is? You can't understand what it's like. Jessica's voice rose, angry now. You've never had everything you worked for threatened. You've never had to face losing it all. You're self-righteous sitting there judging me, but you don't know what it's like. I buried your father, I said quietly. I watched him die over 6 months. I held his hand while the cancer ate him alive. I lost my home when we had to sell it to pay medical bills. I started over at 60 years old with nothing but what I could fit in a townhouse. Don't tell me I don't understand loss. That's different. How? How is it different? Because you didn't have a choice. We did. And we chose to survive. And there it was. The truth beneath all the excuses and rationalizations. They'd made a choice. They'd looked at their options and decided that my life was worth less than their comfort. I hope it was worth it, I said. I hope those expensive suits and that beautiful house and whatever else you were so desperate to keep were worth destroying your family. Mom. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I felt sick, dizzy, like the room was tilting around me. Lily appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Was that Mom? Yes. What did she say? I looked at my granddaughter, this brave, damaged girl who'd lost everything to do the right thing, and I didn't want to burden her with Jessica's words. But I also wouldn't lie to her. She deserved the truth. She said they were desperate. That they didn't have a choice. That I don't understand. Do you? Understand, I mean. I thought about it carefully. I understand desperation. I understand fear. But I don't understand how those things could make you hurt someone you're supposed to love. Some choices, Lily, some choices aren't really choices at all. They're just who you are, revealed. She nodded slowly. I don't think I can forgive them. You don't have to. Not now. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't something you owe people. It's something you give when and if you're ready. Are you going to forgive them? And that was the question, wasn't it? Could I forgive my daughter for trying to kill me? Should I? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to. The mother part. But every time I think about it, I remember lying there in that pre-op room, ready to give you everything, and I remember that she was planning to steal it and maybe let me die in the process. I don't know if I can forgive that. We sat together in silence, two survivors trying to make sense of the wreckage. That night, I had the dream for the first time. I was on the operating table. The bright lights overhead. The antiseptic smell. Dr. Reeves standing over me, mask covering her face, scalpel in hand. But when she leaned in to make the first cut, her eyes changed. Became Jessica's eyes. And I realized I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't stop what was about to happen. I woke up screaming. Lily was at my bedside in seconds, her own face terrified. Grandma. Grandma, it's okay. You're safe. You're home. I held on to her, my heart racing, trying to remember how to breathe. Just a nightmare, I managed to say. But it wasn't just a nightmare. It was my new reality. The knowledge that I'd almost died. That I'd trusted blindly and nearly paid the ultimate price. How do you come back from something like that? If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, really, deeply betrayed, then you know what I'm talking about. Drop a comment and let me know. Because sometimes, just knowing you're not alone in the darkness helps you find your way back to the light. And check the description box below. I've shared other stories there, stories of survival and resilience that might help you through your own dark times. The trial was scheduled for 6 months out. But the arraignment was in 3 days, and I had to decide whether to attend. Whether to face Jessica and Trevor in a courtroom. Whether to make a victim impact statement. Detective Brennan encouraged me. It helps to face them. To take back some power. But Dr. Foster, the therapist I'd started seeing, yes, I needed therapy too, was more cautious. Only if you're ready. This isn't about anyone else's timeline. It's about yours. I thought about it for days. Weighed it. Tried to imagine standing in that courtroom, looking at my daughter, speaking about what she'd done. In the end, I decided to go. Not for revenge. Not even for justice, really. But because I needed to look Jessica in the eye one more time and know that I'd survived. That she hadn't broken me. That I was still here, still standing, still whole despite everything she tried to take from me. I needed to reclaim my story. And that's exactly what I was going to do. The Springfield District Courthouse was an imposing brick building downtown, all columns and marble and the weight of justice that's supposed to matter but sometimes doesn't. I stood outside for 10 minutes before I could make myself walk through those doors. Lily squeezed my hand. We can leave, Grandma. If this is too much, we can go. But I shook my head. No. I need to do this. Detective Brennan met us in the lobby, along with the assistant district attorney handling the case, a sharp woman in her 40s named Patricia Nguyen who'd called me several times to prepare me for what was coming. They'll both be there, she warned me as we walked toward the courtroom. Trevor and Jessica. They're being arraigned together since the charges are connected. You don't have to look at them. You don't have to acknowledge them at all. You're here as a witness and potential victim impact statement, nothing more. But how do you not look at your own daughter? Even after everything, even knowing what she'd done, she was still the baby I'd held. The child I'd raised. The woman I'd thought I knew. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Maybe 20 rows of benches, half of them filled with people I didn't recognize. Reporters, probably. Court watchers. People drawn to tragedy like moths to flame. I took a seat near the front, Lily beside me, Detective Brennan on my other side. And then they brought them in. Trevor first, in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. He looked diminished somehow. Less polished. His perfect hair was disheveled, his face unshaven. When his eyes met mine across the courtroom, there was no remorse there. Only calculation. Like even now, he was figuring angles, planning strategies. Then Jessica. My daughter looked terrible. She'd lost weight, not the healthy kind, the prison kind. Her hair hung limp around her face. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes that looked like bruises. She saw me and started crying immediately. I felt nothing. That's what surprised me most. I'd expected rage or grief or something. But looking at her, I felt empty. Like whatever part of me that had loved her unconditionally had simply shut down, self-preservation kicking in where emotion used to live. The arraignment proceeded quickly. The charges were read: conspiracy to commit organ trafficking, attempted murder, fraud, wire fraud, poisoning with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The list went on and on. Trevor pleaded not guilty to everything. His lawyer, an expensive-looking man with silver hair, immediately started making motions about bail, about his client's standing in the community, about how this was all a misunderstanding. Judge Marianne Bishop, a black woman in her 60s with no patience for nonsense, shut him down immediately. Mr. Hoffman is charged with attempting to traffic human organs through organized crime channels. He allegedly poisoned his own wife to create a medical emergency. He allegedly planned to intercept an organ from his mother-in-law and sell it on the black market, possibly resulting in her death. Does that about cover it, Counselor? Your Honor, the allegations are. I asked if that covers it. Yes or no? Yes, but. Then bail is denied. Mr. Hoffman will remain in custody pending trial. Next. Trevor's face went red. He started to protest, but the bailiff was already leading him away. Then it was Jessica's turn. Her lawyer, a public defender, I noticed, since apparently all their money was gone, made a different argument. That Jessica was a victim too. That Trevor had manipulated her, controlled her, that she'd been suffering from kidney failure herself and wasn't in her right mind. Your Honor, the public defender said, my client is a victim of domestic abuse. Mr. Hoffman exercised coercive control over every aspect of her life. He poisoned her, causing severe medical trauma. She was terrified for herself and her daughter. She went along with his scheme because she feared for her life if she didn't. I almost laughed. Domestic abuse? Coercive control? Jessica had been a willing partner in this scheme. I'd seen the emails. I'd read her words. Judge Bishop seemed to share my skepticism. Ms. Hoffman, do you have anything to say for yourself? Jessica stood up slowly, her lawyer steadying her. I'm so sorry, Your Honor. I'm so sorry for everything. I was sick. I was scared. Trevor said it would be okay, that no one would get hurt, and I just wanted to save our family. By trying to kill your mother. I didn't know, Jessica's voice broke. I didn't know he was planning to hurt her. I thought she'd donate the kidney, and yes, we'd get some money to help pay our debts, but she'd be okay. I swear, I thought she'd be okay. Did you know your mother's kidney was going to be sold on the black market? Silence. Ms. Hoffman, I asked you a question. Yes, Jessica whispered. Yes, I knew. And did you know that if complications arose during surgery, the plan was to eliminate your mother rather than risk her surviving and exposing the scheme? No, I didn't know that part. Trevor never told me that. Judge Bishop looked skeptical, but she continued. Bail is set at $500,000. If Ms. Hoffman can post bail, she'll be released pending trial with electronic monitoring and a restraining order preventing her from contacting her mother or daughter. $500,000. Jessica couldn't afford that. None of their money was accessible. It had all been frozen as proceeds of criminal activity. As they led Jessica away, she turned and looked directly at me. Mom, she mouthed. I'm sorry. I looked away. After the arraignment, ADA Nguyen took me aside. That went well. Neither of them will be getting out anytime soon. Now, for your victim impact statement. I want to write it myself, I said. Not use a template or have someone help me. I need to write it in my own words. She nodded. That's fine. Actually, that's better. More powerful. Just get it to me at least 2 weeks before the trial. We'll go over it together. Make sure it covers everything legally relevant. But Eleanor, keep in mind that this statement will be public record. It will be in the media. Your daughter will hear every word. Good, I said. She should hear it. The next few months were strange. Life continued, somehow. Lily and I developed our routines. She went to school, her new school, where nobody knew her as the girl whose parents tried to murder her grandmother. I went back to volunteering at the community center, though people treated me differently now. With pity. With that uncomfortable awareness that I'd been through something terrible. I started writing the victim impact statement a dozen times. Each attempt ended up in the trash. How do you summarize this kind of betrayal in a few pages? How do you explain what it feels like to realize your child sees you as nothing more than spare parts? How do you put into words the moment when you understand that the person you'd die for was planning to let you die? I was sitting at my kitchen table one afternoon in July, staring at another blank page, when Lily came home from school carrying a book. "We had to read this in English class," she said, setting it down in front of me. "It's about forgiveness. And revenge. And what we owe people who hurt us." I picked up the book, some young adult novel I'd never heard of, and flipped through the pages. Lily had highlighted passages in pencil. "You don't owe them anything," one passage read. "Not your forgiveness. Not your understanding. Not your silence. The only thing you owe yourself is the truth." "Is this what you think I should do?" I asked. "Tell the truth in my statement." "I think." Lily sat down across from me. "I think you should stop trying to protect them. Even now, even after everything, you're still trying to find ways to make them seem less terrible. I've seen your drafts in the trash, Grandma. You keep softening it. Explaining their desperation. Making excuses." "I'm not making excuses." "You are. You're being a mother. But maybe, just this once, you need to stop being their mother and start being their victim." Out of the mouths of 12-year-olds. That night, I wrote the statement in one sitting. No softening. No excuses. Just the raw, ugly truth. The trial began in late September. The courthouse was packed. The case had garnered national attention. Mother's kidney trafficking plot had become shorthand for a certain kind of family betrayal that people couldn't look away from. The prosecution had dozens of witnesses. Doctors who'd treated Jessica. Forensic accountants who'd traced Trevor's financial crimes. FBI agents who'd been tracking Dmitry Volkov's organ trafficking ring for years. And me. I testified for 6 hours over 2 days. ADA Nguyen walked me through everything. The phone call, the hospital visits, the testing, the preparation for surgery. Then Trevor's lawyer cross-examined me, trying to suggest that I was a vindictive mother angry about not being appreciated, that I was exaggerating the danger I'd been in, that surely I must have known something was wrong and chose to proceed anyway. "Isn't it true, Mrs. Vincent, that you wanted to be seen as a hero? That you pushed for the surgery to happen quickly because you enjoyed the attention?" I stared at him. My daughter was dying. Or so I thought. I would have done anything to save her. That's not heroism. That's just love. "But you admit you moved quickly. You didn't get second opinions, didn't question the diagnosis." "Because I trusted my daughter. I trusted the doctors. I trusted that when someone tells you their kidneys are failing, they're telling the truth." "And you never suspected anything was wrong? Never questioned why a healthy 38-year-old would suddenly develop catastrophic kidney failure?" "I questioned it. But the doctors said it was an autoimmune condition. I had no reason to doubt them. No reason except a mother's intuition. My mother's intuition was telling me to save my child, counselor. That's what mothers do. We don't assume our children are trying to kill us." The courtroom was silent. Jessica's lawyer tried a different approach when he cross-examined me. Sympathy. Understanding. "Mrs. Vincent, you love your daughter, don't you?" I did. "Do you believe she ever wanted to hurt you?" "I believe she wanted my kidney more than she wanted me alive." "But surely you can understand that she was desperate. That her husband had put them in an impossible financial situation. That she was sick, frightened, not thinking clearly." "I understand that she made choices," I said. "I understand that when she had to choose between my life and her comfort, she chose comfort. I understand that she looked at me and saw dollar signs instead of a human being. Instead of her mother. You're angry. I'm alive. If my granddaughter hadn't been brave enough to speak up, I'd be dead. So yes, counselor, I'm angry. Wouldn't you be? He had no response to that. The prosecution rested after 2 weeks. The defense tried to mount a case, character witnesses for Trevor talking about what a good businessman he'd been, a psychologist testifying about Jessica's mental state, claims that she'd been coerced and controlled. But the evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the contracts, the poison, the plan. All of it documented, undeniable. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Both of them. I was in the courtroom when the verdict was read. I watched Jessica's face crumble, watched her grab her lawyer's arm as if she could steady herself against the weight of justice. Trevor showed no emotion. Just stared straight ahead, already planning his appeal probably. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. That's when I would deliver my victim impact statement. That's when I would finally say everything I'd been holding inside for months. The night before the sentencing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, running through the statement in my mind. I'd memorized it. Every word. Every pause. Every moment where I needed to look at Jessica and make sure she understood what she'd done. Around 2 a.m., Lily knocked on my door. Can't sleep either, she asked. No. Come here, sweetheart. She climbed into bed beside me, and we lay there in the dark, 2 people bound together by trauma and survival. Are you scared? She asked. About tomorrow? Yes. But not of them. I'm scared of saying goodbye, I guess. To who I thought Jessica was. To who I thought we were as a family. We're still a family. You and me. Yes. Yes, we are. Grandma, do you think Mom ever really loved us? Or was it always just this? Using people? I thought about it carefully. I think she loved us in the way she was capable of loving. But I also think that when it came down to it, when she had to choose between love and self-preservation, she chose herself. And that's not really love at all, is it? No, Lily whispered. No, it's not. We fell asleep like that, holding on to each other in the darkness. The courtroom was packed for sentencing. More reporters. More onlookers. Family members of other victims of the organ trafficking ring. People who'd been following the case and wanted to see justice served. Judge Bishop called the court to order and addressed Trevor first. His lawyer made a passionate plea for leniency. Trevor's difficult childhood. His business successes. His contributions to the community. All meaningless words that couldn't erase what he'd done. Judge Bishop sentenced him to 35 years in federal prison for organ trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and a dozen other charges. Trevor didn't flinch. Just nodded once, like he'd been expecting it. Then it was Jessica's turn. Her lawyer again emphasized the coercive control, the abuse, the fact that she'd been a victim too. Judge Bishop listened patiently, then asked if anyone wanted to make a victim impact statement. Yes, Your Honor, Ada Nguyen said. Eleanor Vincent would like to speak. I stood up on shaking legs and walked to the podium in front of the judge's bench. Jessica was 10 feet away from me. Close enough that I could see every detail of her face. Close enough to see her hands trembling in her lap. I pulled out my statement, smoothed the pages, and began to read. Your Honor, my name is Eleanor Vincent, and I am here today because my daughter tried to kill me. My voice was steady, stronger than I'd expected. I want to be very clear about what happened. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a desperate mother making a mistake. This was a calculated, deliberate attempt to take my kidney, sell it for profit, and possibly let me die in the process. I looked up from the paper, looked directly at Jessica. Jessica Hoffman is my only child. I gave birth to her 38 years ago. I nursed her through every childhood illness. I held her when she cried. I celebrated every achievement. I loved her completely, unconditionally, the way mothers are supposed to love their children. Jessica was crying now, silently, tears streaming down her face. When she called me and told me she was dying, I didn't hesitate. I agreed immediately to donate my kidney. I would have given her both kidneys if it were possible. I would have given her my heart. Because that's what a mother's love is, it's giving everything without question, without reservation. I paused, letting the words sink in. I now know that she was never sick. Not really. Her kidney failure was induced by her husband poisoning her, with her full knowledge and cooperation. She made herself sick to manipulate me. She put herself through dialysis, terrified her own daughter, caused everyone who loved her enormous pain and fear, all so that I would agree to donate. The courtroom was absolutely silent. I am 63 years old. I have lived a good life. I have seen joy and sorrow. I have loved deeply and lost people I loved. But nothing in my 63 years prepared me for the betrayal of realizing that my own daughter saw me not as a human being, not as her mother, but as a commodity to be harvested and sold. My voice cracked slightly. I steadied it. The day of the surgery, I was lying on the operating table. I had been prepped. I was ready to go under anesthesia. I was ready to give my daughter a piece of myself, to save her life at great personal risk. And if it wasn't for my 12-year-old granddaughter's courage in speaking up, I would have died on that table. I looked at Lily, sitting in the front row with Detective Brennan. She was crying too, but she nodded at me. Keep going. I want the court to understand what this has taken from me. I don't just mean the physical toll, though I am grateful every day that I still have both my kidneys, that I'm still alive. I mean what it's taken from my soul. From my ability to trust. From my understanding of what family means. I turned back to Jessica. I loved you, I said, speaking directly to her now, no longer reading from the paper. I loved you more than I loved myself. I would have died for you willingly, gladly, if it meant you would live. And you were planning to take that love, take that sacrifice, and profit from it. You were willing to steal my organ and possibly let me die to cover up your crimes. Jessica sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I will never forgive you, I continued. I want you to know that. I will never forgive what you did. Not because I'm cruel or vindictive, but because what you did is unforgivable. You looked at the woman who gave you life and decided she was worth less than money. You put a price tag on my existence. And I will carry that knowledge for the rest of my days. I looked back at Judge Bishop. Your Honor, I'm not asking for any particular sentence. That's up to you and the law. But I am asking that the court understand the full weight of what Jessica Hoffman did. She didn't just participate in organ trafficking. She didn't just commit fraud. She tried to murder her own mother. And she did it coldly, calculatingly, over months of careful planning. That is who she is. That is what she's capable of. And the world needs to be protected from that. I folded the paper, placed it back in my pocket. Thank you, Your Honor. The courtroom erupted in whispers as I walked back to my seat. Lily grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight. Judge Bishop called for order, then addressed Jessica directly. Ms. Hoffman, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Jessica stood, barely able to hold herself upright. Mom, she said, looking at me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. Please, please forgive me. I said nothing. Just stared at her until she looked away. Judge Bishop's expression was granite. Ms. Hoffman, I've heard a lot of excuses in this courtroom. A lot of explanations for why people do terrible things. But what you did goes beyond anything I can comprehend. You weaponized your mother's love. You turned her most beautiful instinct, to save her child, into a trap that could have killed her. She paused, letting the words settle. Taking into account your cooperation with the investigation, your lesser role compared to your husband, and your own victimization by poisoning, I sentence you to 20 years in federal prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release. You will have no contact with your mother for the duration of your sentence and release, unless she specifically requests it. You will pay restitution in the amount of $300,000, the sum you expected to receive for selling your mother's kidney. 20 years. Jessica collapsed. Her lawyer caught her, helped her back into her seat. It was over. As the bailiffs led Jessica and Trevor away, in different directions, to different facilities, Jessica turned one last time and looked at me. I met her gaze without flinching. And then she was gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I made a brief statement, thanked the detectives and prosecutors, and then Lily and I got into Detective Brennan's car and let her drive us away from the chaos. How do you feel? Brennan asked. Empty, I said honestly, but alive. That night, Lily and I ordered pizza and watched a movie neither of us paid attention to. We were just together, in my living room, safe. What happens now? Lily asked. Now. I thought about it. Now we rebuild. We figure out who we are without them. We make a new family, just the two of us. We heal. Can people heal from something like this? I don't know, I admitted. But we're going to try. And we did. 3 months after the sentencing, I got a letter. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, postmarked from the Springfield Women's Correctional Facility. I stared at it for 10 minutes before I could bring myself to open it. Jessica's handwriting. Pages and pages of it. Mom, I know you said you'd never forgive me. I understand that. But there are things you don't know. Things I need to tell you before it's too late. Please, please read this. Please try to understand. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I almost threw it away. Almost burned it. But some horrible curiosity made me keep reading. Jessica's letter detailed things that hadn't come out at trial. How Trevor had been running a Ponzi scheme through his investment business for 5 years. How he owed money not just to banks and the IRS, but to dangerous people, organized crime figures who'd threatened to kill them both if the debts weren't paid. He told me they were going to hurt Lily, Jessica wrote. That they knew where her school was, what route she took home. He showed me photos they'd sent, pictures of Lily walking down the street, sitting in class, getting on the school bus. I was terrified, Mom. I was so scared for my baby. She described how Trevor had come up with the organ trafficking scheme as a way out. How at first she'd refused, horrified. How he'd worn her down over weeks, convincing her it was the only way to save their family. He said you'd be fine. That you were healthy, that people donate kidneys all the time and live normal lives. He said we'd make sure you got the best care, that there was almost no risk. He made it sound like we were just borrowing from you. Like we'd pay you back someday. Then she described the poisoning. How Trevor had put the aristolochic acid in her morning smoothies. How she'd woken up one day feeling sick and getting progressively worse. How by the time she realized what he'd done, she was genuinely ill, genuinely frightened. I wanted to back out, she wrote. I swear, Mom, I wanted to stop it. But by then I was on dialysis and he said we were in too deep. That if we backed out now, the people he owed money to would kill us. All of us, including you and Lily. He said the only way to keep everyone safe was to go through with it. The letter went on for pages. Justifications. Explanations. Desperate attempts to make me understand that she'd been trapped, manipulated, terrified. And maybe some of it was true. Maybe Trevor had threatened her, controlled her, backed her into corners. But there was one detail in the letter that stopped me cold. The night you came to dinner, the night before the surgery, I almost told you everything. I was in the kitchen doing dishes, and you were getting ready to leave, and I thought, this is my last chance. Tell her. Stop this. But then Trevor looked at me with that expression he gets when he's warning me to stay quiet, and I didn't. I chose silence. I chose to let it happen. She chose. Even terrified, even manipulated, even backed into a corner. She'd had a chance to save me, and she'd chosen not to take it. I read the entire letter 3 times, trying to feel something. Trying to find some crack in my anger where sympathy could seep through. But all I felt was tired. I wrote back. Just one line. You had a choice that night in the kitchen. You chose wrong. Live with that. I never heard from her again. But I did hear from someone else I never expected. In January, 6 months after the trial, a woman named Carolyn Webb contacted me through Detective Brennan. Mrs. Vincent, Carolyn Webb is asking to meet with you, Brennan said when she called. She's the woman whose husband was going to receive your kidney. The buyer. The person on the other end of this horrible transaction. My first instinct was to refuse. Why would I want to meet the person who'd been willing to buy a black market organ? Who'd funded this entire nightmare? But Brennan continued. She says she didn't know it was black market. She thought it was a legal compensated donation program. And she has information about Dmitry Volkov's operation that might help us shut down the whole network. She's willing to testify, but she wants to meet you first. To apologize. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met in a coffee shop in Springfield on a gray Tuesday afternoon. Carolyn Webb was in her 50s, expensively dressed, with the kind of groomed appearance that comes from money and careful maintenance. She stood when I entered, her hands twisting together nervously. Mrs. Vincent, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I sat down across from her, ordered nothing. You have 5 minutes. She nodded, accepting the harsh terms. My husband, Gregory, has polycystic kidney disease. He's been on dialysis for 3 years. We've been on the transplant list, but he's not a high priority case, and the wait is so long. Years, they told us. Maybe 5, maybe 10 years before a kidney becomes available. I said nothing, just waited. A man approached us at the dialysis center. Said he knew of a program where people could make compensated donations. That it was legal in other countries, that the donors were willing participants who needed money and we needed kidneys, and it was mutually beneficial. He said the cost would be $300,000, but Gregory would get a kidney within months instead of years. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. Her eyes filled with tears. My husband was dying. The dialysis was destroying him. I would have done anything, paid anything, to save him. So yes, I chose to believe it was legitimate. I chose not to ask too many questions. Convenient. I know how it sounds. But Mrs. Vincent, I swear to you, I didn't know it was stolen. I didn't know they were planning to hurt you. When the FBI showed up and explained what had happened, explained that your kidney was going to be taken from you without your knowledge, possibly at the cost of your life. She covered her face with her hands. I was horrified. Absolutely horrified. But you still tried to buy an organ. Legal or not, you were trying to circumvent the system. To use money to jump ahead of people who've been waiting years. Yes, I was. And I don't know how to make that right. I don't know how to apologize for being so desperate that I didn't care where the kidney came from, as long as my husband got it. We sat in silence for a long moment. What do you want from me? I finally asked. I want you to know that I'm testifying against Volkov. That I'm helping the FBI track down his entire operation. And I want you to know that Gregory died 3 months ago. His kidneys finally gave out completely. He never got his transplant. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Because I wouldn't blame you if you weren't. If you thought we got what we deserved. Did I think that? I honestly didn't know. I don't wish death on anyone, I said slowly. Not even people who were willing to benefit from my exploitation. But I also don't have any sympathy to spare. I used up all my sympathy on my daughter, and look where that got me. Carolyn nodded. Fair enough. I needed you to know that there are consequences on this end too. That we're not just faceless villains. We were desperate people who made terrible choices. Welcome to the club, I said, and stood up to leave. Mrs. Vincent, she called after me. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad your granddaughter saved you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that our desperation intersected with yours in such a horrible way. I left without responding. Because what could I say? That I forgave her? I didn't. That I understood. I didn't want to. That desperate people do desperate things? I'd learned that lesson too well already. But her testimony did help. By March, the FBI had dismantled Dmitry Volkov's entire operation. 37 people arrested across 6 states. 11 doctors stripped of their medical licenses. 4 hospitals under investigation for turning a blind eye to suspicious transplants. And Volkov himself, extradited from Montenegro, facing life in prison. Some good came from the horror. But it didn't erase what had happened. Didn't heal what had been broken. Lily turned 13 in February. We celebrated quietly, just the 2 of us, a cake I baked, presents I'd carefully chosen. She was growing up so fast, this girl who'd saved my life. Growing taller, growing quieter, growing into someone who understood darkness too early. Do you miss them? I asked her that night, after the cake was eaten and presents opened. Your parents. She thought about it carefully. I miss who I thought they were. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Sometimes I think about Mom. About good memories, like when she'd read to me before bed, or when we'd bake cookies together. And then I remember that the person who did those things is the same person who tried to kill you, and it's like those memories are contaminated now. Like I can't trust anything that felt good. That's one of the cruelest things about betrayal, I said. It doesn't just destroy the present and future. It reaches back and destroys the past too. Makes you question everything you thought was real. Did you have good memories of Mom? Before all this? So many. Wonderful memories. But you're right, they're contaminated now. Every time I try to remember her as a child, I see her face in that courtroom. Every time I try to remember loving moments, I remember her choosing to stay silent when she could have saved me. We sat together in the quiet of my living room, two people bound by trauma trying to figure out how to make new memories that weren't tainted by the old ones. Grandma. Lily said eventually, I think we're going to be okay. Not today, maybe not for a long time. But eventually. Why do you think that? Because we're still here. Because we survived. And because... She paused, searching for words. Because we chose each other. Not because we had to, not because of blood or obligation, but because we wanted to. And that's stronger than family, I think. Choosing is stronger than blood. Out of the mouths of 13-year-olds. She was right, of course. We had chosen each other. In that moment when everything fell apart, when the family tree came crashing down, we'd grabbed onto each other and held on. That wasn't blood. That wasn't obligation. That was love. Real love. The kind that doesn't come with conditions or ulterior motives or price tags. If you're watching this and you've ever had to choose between blood family and chosen family, you know what I mean. You know that sometimes the people who share your DNA are less family than the people who choose to show up for you when everything falls apart. Drop a comment and tell me about your chosen family. Because I think those stories need to be told just as much as the horror stories. We need to remember that even in the darkest times, there are people who choose love over everything else. And check that description box below. There are more stories there about survival, about rebuilding, about finding light in the darkest places. That spring, Lily and I planted a garden together. We dug up a section of my small backyard and planted tomatoes, peppers, herbs, flowers. We worked in the soil side by side, our hands dirty, the sun warm on our backs. This is my favorite thing we've done, Lily said one Saturday afternoon as we tied tomato plants to stakes. Just this. Being here. Growing something. Mine too, I admitted. Because it was symbolic, wasn't it? Taking something barren and making it grow. Taking something dead and bringing it back to life. Taking the darkness and finding a way to create light. We were growing more than tomatoes. We were growing a new family. A new life. A new understanding of what it meant to survive. And that, more than anything else, more than justice, more than revenge, more than even the satisfaction of seeing Jessica and Trevor behind bars, that was healing. 18 months after the sentencing, I did something I swore I'd never do. I went to visit Jessica in prison. Not because I forgave her. Not because I missed her. But because I realized I needed closure that I couldn't get from letters or courtrooms or second-hand reports. I needed to look her in the eye one more time and know, absolutely know, that the daughter I'd raised was gone. That whoever that person had been, she didn't exist anymore. Or maybe she'd never existed at all. The Springfield Women's Correctional Facility was a ugly concrete building surrounded by fences and barbed wire. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to convince myself to go inside. Lily had argued against this visit. She doesn't deserve to see you, Grandma. She doesn't deserve your time or your energy or even your anger. I'm not doing this for her, I'd explained. I'm doing it for me. Now, sitting in the parking lot, I wasn't so sure. But I'd come this far. Might as well see it through. The visiting process was dehumanizing, metal detectors, searches, forms to fill out, guards watching everything. They led me to a large room filled with tables and chairs, cameras in every corner, other inmates visiting with family members. Then they brought Jessica in. She looked smaller. That was my first thought. Like prison had physically diminished her. She wore an orange jumpsuit that hung on her thin frame. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, gray starting to show at the roots. No makeup. No jewelry. Nothing of the polished woman who'd lived in that beautiful house and driven an expensive car. She sat down across from me, her hands folded on the table between us. We couldn't touch. Prison rules. Mom, she said, and her voice cracked. I didn't think you'd ever come. I almost didn't. But you're here. I'm here. We sat in awkward silence. Around us, other families talked, laughed, cried. Normal visiting day sounds that felt surreal in context of why we were here. How's Lily? Jessica finally asked. She's good. Doing well in school. Made the honor roll last semester. Does she ever ask about me? Sometimes. Less and less as time goes on. Jessica's face crumpled. I've lost her, haven't I? I've lost both of you. You didn't lose us, Jessica. You chose to betray us. There's a difference. I know I did. And I think about it every day. Every single day, I wake up in here and remember what I did, what I gave up, what I destroyed. Good, I said flatly. You should remember. She flinched. I deserve that. I deserve all of it. The prison, the guilt, the knowledge that I'll never see my daughter grow up. I destroyed my own life and I have no one to blame but myself. And Trevor. Her expression hardened. I filed for divorce. He's been sending me letters, trying to convince me that we're in this together, that we need to present a united front. But I'm done. I'm done with him, done with his manipulation, done with letting someone else control my choices. Little late for that revelation, don't you think? Yes, it's too late. But maybe. She leaned forward slightly. Maybe it's not too late to tell you the truth. The whole truth, not the version I told myself to make it easier to live with. I waited. I knew, Jessica said quietly. I knew from the very beginning what Trevor was planning. The poisoning, the black market sale, the possibility that you might die. I knew all of it. And I went along with it because I was terrified of losing my comfortable life. Not because of threats to Lily, not because I was being controlled. Because I was selfish and weak and I chose money over you. The honesty was startling. Brutal. And somehow worse than the lies. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve the truth. Because I'm tired of lying. And because... She looked down at her hands. Because I want you to know that the person who did that to you, that's who I really am. Not the loving daughter you remember. Not the woman who baked cookies and read bedtime stories. Those were masks. Underneath, I'm someone capable of monstrous things, and you need to know that so you can move on without guilt. Without guilt. I almost laughed. Jessica, I don't feel guilty. I feel betrayed. I feel angry. I feel heartbroken. But I don't feel guilty. You should. You raised me. Whatever's wrong with me, it came from somewhere. And there it was. The attempt to shift blame, even in the midst of her confession. No, I said firmly. You don't get to do that. You don't get to blame your choices on your childhood or your upbringing or me. I raised you with love. I gave you everything I could. What you did with that is on you, not me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. Apologies don't mean anything when the damage is irreversible. Then what do you want from me? Why did you come here? Why had I come? I'd asked myself that question 100 times. I came to see if there was anything left, I said slowly. Any piece of the daughter I thought I had. Any evidence that the woman I loved for 38 years actually existed. And I looked at her, really looked at her. Searched her face for some trace of the little girl who'd curled up in my lap during thunderstorms. The teenager who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak. The young bride who'd been so happy on her wedding day. And I found nothing. Either she'd changed beyond recognition, or I'd never really known her at all. You're a stranger to me, I said. I don't know who you are. Maybe I never did. Tears streamed down Jessica's face. I'm your daughter. No. You're a woman who shares my DNA. But my daughter, the person I thought I raised, she doesn't exist. Maybe she never did. Mom, please. Don't call me that. My voice was sharp. You gave up the right to call me that when you decided to sell my organs. We sat in terrible silence. I could see other visitors staring at us now, sensing the drama, the tension. Finally, Jessica spoke again. Is there anything I can do? Anything that would make this even a little bit better? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yes, I said eventually. You can sign over all parental rights to Lily. I want to adopt her officially. Make it legal that she's my daughter now, not yours. Jessica's face went white. You want me to give up my daughter? I want you to acknowledge reality. Lily doesn't want to see you. She's terrified of you. And as long as you have parental rights, there's always the possibility that someday you'll get out of here and try to claim her back. I won't let that happen. I won't let you traumatize her again. She's all I have left. No. You have nothing. You gave it all away. And the kindest thing you can do now, the only decent thing, is to let her go. Let her be happy with me. Let her build a life without the shadow of what you did hanging over her. Jessica sobbed openly now, her shoulders shaking. A guard glanced over, ready to intervene if needed. If I do this, Jessica whispered, will you at least tell her I loved her? That I always loved her, even when I did terrible things. I'll tell her the truth. That you made choices. That you prioritized other things over her safety and well-being. And that eventually, you did one decent thing by letting her go. That's not love. No, I agreed. It's not. But it's all you have left to give her. We sat there for a few more minutes, neither of us speaking. What else was there to say? We'd said it all, the accusations, the confessions, the final severing of what had once bound us together. Finally, I stood up. I'll have my lawyer send you the paperwork. Sign it. Don't fight me on this. Give Lily this one thing. I will, Jessica said. I'll sign it. Mom, Eleanor, wait. I paused, looking down at her. Do you think she'll ever forgive me? When she's older, when she understands more about the world and how complicated everything is, do you think there's any chance? I considered lying, giving her some small hope to cling to in this place. But I'd promised myself truth, no matter how brutal. No, I said. I don't think she'll ever forgive you. Because some things are unforgivable. Some betrayals are too deep. And what you did, what you tried to do, that's one of them. I walked away before she could respond. Walked through the security checkpoints, back through the metal detectors, out into the parking lot where the September sun was bright and warm and everything smelled like freedom. I sat in my car and cried for 20 minutes. Not for Jessica. Not for what she'd become or what we'd lost. I cried for the daughter who'd never existed. For the family I'd thought I had. For the 38 years I'd spent loving someone who apparently had never been real. And then I dried my eyes, started the car, and drove home to Lily. To my real daughter. The one I'd chosen and who'd chosen me. The paperwork came through 6 weeks later. Jessica had signed over all parental rights without contesting it. My lawyer, a kind woman named Patricia Morrison, expedited the adoption process. On a cold December morning, Lily and I stood in family court before Judge Elizabeth Kimball. A different judge, a different courtroom, but the same courthouse where Jessica and Trevor had been sentenced. This is a happy day, Judge Kimball said, smiling at us. We don't get enough happy days in this courthouse. Lily Hoffman, do you understand that once this adoption is finalized, Eleanor Vincent will be your legal mother? That your relationship with your biological parents will be legally terminated? Lily stood straight and spoke clearly. Yes, Your Honor. I understand. And it's what I want. And Eleanor Vincent, do you accept all the responsibilities and joys of motherhood? Do you commit to raising Lily, supporting her, loving her, for the rest of your days? I do, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Absolutely, I do. Then by the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I declare this adoption legal and binding. Lily Vincent, welcome to your new family. The courtroom, small as it was, with just us, my lawyer, and a court reporter, erupted in applause. Lily threw her arms around me, and we stood there crying and laughing and holding each other. My daughter. My real daughter. Not because of biology or obligation, but because we'd chosen each other when it mattered most. We celebrated with lunch at Lily's favorite restaurant, then ice cream, then a movie we both wanted to see. Just a normal day for a normal family. Except we weren't normal. We were something better. We were survivors who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something new. That night, as Lily was getting ready for bed, she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you think Jessica, do you think she understands what she lost? Really understands?" I thought about the broken woman I'd seen in prison. About her tears and her confessions and her desperate questions. "I think she's starting to," I said. But I don't think she'll ever fully comprehend it. Because to really understand what she lost, she'd have to be capable of the kind of love she threw away. And I don't think she is. Lily nodded slowly. I used to worry that I'd grow up to be like her. Like maybe whatever made her capable of doing that to you was in me too. You're nothing like her. How do you know? Because when you were faced with a choice, when you knew something terrible was happening and you could either stay silent or speak up, you chose to speak up. You chose to do the right thing even though it was hard. Even though it meant losing your parents. That's not something Jessica would do. That's who you are, Lily. That's your character. And it's beautiful. She hugged me goodnight, and I stood in her doorway for a long time after she'd fallen asleep, watching her breathe, marveling at how something so good had come out of something so horrible. Life is strange that way. Tragedy and grace all tangled together. Christmas that year was quiet and perfect. Just the two of us, decorating a small tree, making cookies, watching old movies. No expensive presents. No elaborate dinners. Just presents. Just being together. On Christmas morning, after presents were opened and breakfast was eaten, Lily handed me an envelope. I made this for you, she said shyly. Inside was a handmade card. On the front, she'd drawn the two of us in our garden, surrounded by flowers. Inside, she'd written, "To my mom, thank you for saving my life by letting me save yours. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. I love you more than words can say. Lily." I cried reading it. Happy tears this time. Healing tears. "I love you too, sweetheart," I said, pulling her close. "More than you'll ever know." That afternoon, my phone rang. "Detective Brennan. Eleanor, I wanted to update you. Dmitry Volkov was sentenced this morning. Life in prison without parole. The entire organ trafficking network has been dismantled. It's over." Over. The word felt impossible. Could something like this ever really be over? Could you close the book on this kind of trauma and walk away clean? No. But you could move forward. You could build a new life on top of the ruins of the old one. You could choose, every single day, to keep living. And that's what we did. Lily and I built a life together. A good life. Not perfect. We both had nightmares sometimes, both struggled with trust and fear and the lingering effects of trauma. But we had therapy and we had each other and we had the determination to not let Jessica and Trevor's betrayal define the rest of our lives. She graduated middle school with honors. Started high school. Made friends. Joined the debate team. Became a person I was incredibly proud of. And I learned that motherhood, real motherhood, isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about making the hard choices. It's about loving someone enough to let them grow into whoever they're meant to be. I'd been a mother before. But with Lily, I learned what it really meant. Not obligation. Not sacrifice demanded. Choice. Love freely given. And that made all the difference. 3 years after the trial, I sold my townhouse. It was time. Too many memories haunted those rooms, of Jessica as a child, of family dinners that turned out to be built on lies, of the life I'd thought I had before everything collapsed. Lily and I found a small house on the other side of Springfield. 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, close to her high school. A fresh start in a neighborhood where nobody knew our story. Moving day was chaotic and exhausting and exactly what we needed. Lily's friends came to help, good kids who knew bits and pieces of what had happened but never treated her like a victim. Just like a friend who'd been through something hard. "This is going to be great, Mrs. Vincent," said Emma, Lily's best friend, as they carried boxes up to what would be Lily's new room. "You guys are going to love it here." And we did. We painted walls in colors we chose together. We arranged furniture and hung pictures and slowly, carefully, made the house a home. Our home. Not haunted by the past, but full of possibility for the future. I went back to work part-time, not nursing, my body couldn't handle the physical demands anymore, but consulting work for a medical ethics organization. They'd actually reached out to me after the trial, asking if I'd be willing to speak about organ donation ethics, about how to protect vulnerable donors, about red flags in familial donation cases. At first, I'd refused. The last thing I wanted was to relive my trauma for audiences. But then I thought about all the other people out there. Other mothers who might be manipulated by their children. Other elderly people who might be seen as nothing more than spare parts. Other families where greed trumped love. If my story could protect even one person from what I'd been through, wasn't that worth the discomfort? So I said yes. I started speaking at medical conferences, at ethics seminars, at training sessions for transplant coordinators. I told my story, not for pity, not for attention, but as a warning. As a lesson in what can happen when we assume the best of people without protecting the vulnerable. Trust, but verify, became my motto. Love doesn't mean blind faith. It means clear eyes and strong boundaries. The work was hard. Every time I told the story, I relived pieces of it. But it was also healing. Taking my worst experience and using it to help others, that gave it meaning. That transformed me from victim to advocate. Lily came with me sometimes, when the audiences were appropriate. She told her side of the story, what it was like to realize her parents were planning something terrible, to make the choice to speak up, to lose her family but gain herself. I learned that being loyal to people who hurt you isn't loyalty, she'd say. It's just enabling. Real loyalty is to truth and justice, even when it costs you everything. At 16, she was wiser than I'd been at 60. We didn't talk about Jessica much. There wasn't much to say. She was serving her time. According to the occasional updates from my lawyer, she'd become a model prisoner. Took classes. Participated in therapy. Wrote letters to us that we never opened. Trevor, on the other hand, continued to maintain his innocence. Filed appeal after appeal, all of which were denied. He'd become a prison lawyer of sorts, helping other inmates with their cases, probably scheming even behind bars. Some people never change. On Lily's 16th birthday, we got an unexpected package. It came from the prison, properly screened and approved. Inside was a small jewelry box containing a necklace, a simple silver chain with a heart pendant. There was a note in Jessica's handwriting. Lily, this was my mother's, your great-grandmother's. I've had it since I was your age. I want you to have it now. Not because I think jewelry can make up for anything, but because you deserve to know you come from a long line of women, and that some of them were good people who loved well. I'm sorry I couldn't be one of them. Happy 16th birthday. Jessica. Lily held the necklace for a long time, not saying anything. What do you want to do with it? I asked carefully. I don't know. Part of me wants to throw it away. Reject it like she rejected us. That would be understandable. But part of me. She fingered the pendant. Part of me wants to keep it. Not because of her. But because it belonged to great-grandma, and I never got to know her. This is a piece of family history that has nothing to do with what Jessica did. Then keep it. The necklace didn't betray you. Jessica did. They're not the same thing. She put it in her jewelry box, where it stayed. She never wore it, but she didn't throw it away either. Just let it exist as a complicated reminder that family history is messy, that good and bad can come from the same source. That's something I was learning too. That I could acknowledge the good parts of Jessica's childhood, the love I'd given her, the moments we'd shared, without excusing what she'd become. That my love for the daughter I'd thought I had wasn't wasted, even if that daughter turned out to be an illusion. I'd loved real. The fact that it wasn't returned the same way didn't make my love less valid. 4 years after the trial, I got news that changed everything. Detective Brennan called on a Tuesday morning in May. Eleanor, I wanted to give you a heads up before you see it on the news. Jessica collapsed in prison yesterday. They rushed her to the hospital. My stomach dropped. Is she? She's alive. But it's serious. They're running tests, but early indications suggest it's her kidneys again. The transplant kidney she received, the one from Volkov's network, it's failing. The irony was almost too much to bear. Jessica had poisoned herself to fake kidney failure. Had received a black market kidney to complete the deception. And now, years later, that kidney was actually failing for real. What happens now? I asked. She's on the transplant list, like any other patient. But given her criminal history, given what she did. Brennan paused. Let's just say she's not going to be high priority. Karma is a real thing, turns out. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sick. And part of me, the mother part that refuses to die no matter how much it should, felt a twinge of something that might have been concern. I told Lily that night over dinner. Her reaction was immediate and clear. Good. She deserves exactly what she planned for you, to suffer, to beg for help, to be denied. Lily. Don't tell me to feel sorry for her, Mom. I won't. She made her choices. This is just consequences. And she was right. Of course she was right. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. About Jessica lying in a prison hospital, her body failing, facing the very real possibility of death. Did I want her to die? I examined the question carefully, honestly, and the answer was, no. Not because I forgave her or because I thought she deserved mercy, but because I didn't want to become someone who wished death on people, even people who tried to kill me. I'd spent 4 years rebuilding myself into someone I could be proud of. Someone who'd survived with grace and dignity. I wouldn't let Jessica's karma change who I'd become. So I did something crazy. I called the hospital where Jessica was being treated. This is Eleanor Vincent. I'm calling about Jessica Hoffman. The doctor on her case, a tired-sounding woman named Dr. Rachel Ortiz, came on the line. Mrs. Vincent, I'm familiar with your case. I want to be very clear. There is no expectation that you donate to Ms. Hoffman again. After what she did to you. I'm not calling to offer donation, I said quickly. I wouldn't do that. But I am calling to verify something. Is she really dying? Or is this another manipulation? I can't discuss patient details without consent, but, off the record, it's real. The kidney she received 4 years ago was damaged, probably harvested improperly. It's been slowly failing, and now it's reached critical stage. Without a transplant or consistent dialysis, she has maybe 6 months. 6 months. Jessica was going to die in prison, alone, suffering the same fate she'd planned for me. Thank you for telling me, I said, and hung up. I didn't tell Jessica I'd called. Didn't send a message or visit. Just sat with the knowledge, trying to figure out what I felt. The truth? I felt relief. Not that she was dying, I'm not that cruel. But relief that this chapter was finally, truly closing. That the woman who'd haunted my nightmares and disrupted my peace would soon be gone. And then I felt guilty for feeling relief. And then I felt angry at myself for feeling guilty. The emotional rollercoaster never really ends, does it? Even years later, even after therapy and healing and building a new life, the trauma still has hooks in you. You okay, Mom? Lily asked, finding me lost in thought at the kitchen table that evening. I don't know. I'm processing. Processing what? That karma is real. Processing what it means to watch your enemy suffer and realize you're not as happy about it as you thought you'd be. Lily sat down across from me. At 16, she'd grown into a beautiful, thoughtful young woman. So much stronger than I'd been at her age. So much wiser. You're not happy because you're a good person, she said simply. You're not wired to take pleasure in suffering, even when it's deserved. That's what makes you different from Jessica. She could watch you suffer and feel nothing. You can watch her suffer and feel conflicted. That's not weakness, Mom. That's humanity. When did you get so smart? I had a good teacher. We sat together in comfortable silence, and I realized something important. I didn't need to forgive Jessica. I didn't need to feel sorry for her. I didn't need to do anything except keep living my life, keep loving my daughter, keep moving forward. Jessica's fate was her own. Her consequences were earned. And I was finally, fully free of any obligation to her, emotional, moral, or otherwise. She was my past. Lily was my future. And the future was looking pretty good. Jessica died on a cold February morning, 6 months after her kidney failure diagnosis. They called me from the prison. Asked if I wanted to claim the body, make arrangements, attend any service. I said no to all of it. Trevor could deal with it, I told them. He was still her husband. Technically, the divorce had never been finalized. It was his responsibility now. I did tell Lily, though. She deserved to know. She's gone, I said simply. We were in the kitchen, making pancakes for breakfast on a Saturday. Normal life doing normal things. Lily paused, spatula in hand. Do you feel anything? I thought about it. Examined my heart for grief, for relief, for anything. I feel quiet, I said finally. Like someone turned off a noise I'd gotten used to. Not happy it's gone, not sad it's gone. Just aware of the silence. Me too, Lily said. She flipped the pancake. Is that weird? That we're not crying or anything? No. We did our grieving years ago. When we lost the people we thought they were. This is just the epilogue. We finished making breakfast, ate together at the kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through the windows. A normal Saturday. A normal life. That's what Jessica's death gave us, in the end. Not closure. Closure is a myth, something we tell ourselves to feel better about unfinished business. But permission to stop looking over our shoulders. To stop wondering if someday she'd get out and try to find us. To stop carrying the weight of her continued existence. She was gone. And we could fully, completely move on. Lily graduated high school 2 years later with honors. I sat in the audience of the graduation ceremony, watching her walk across that stage to receive her diploma, and I cried like a baby. Not sad tears. Not relieved tears. Just pure, overwhelming pride. This girl, this extraordinary young woman who'd survived trauma and betrayal and loss, was thriving. Was heading to college in the fall with a full scholarship. Was planning to study law, inspired by her experience with the justice system. I want to help people like us, she told me during the college application process. People who've been victimized by family, who need someone to fight for them when they can't fight for themselves. After the ceremony, after the photos and the congratulations from teachers and friends, we went out to dinner. Just the two of us, to our favorite Italian restaurant. I'm so proud of you, I told her over pasta and breadsticks. Not just for graduating. For everything. For who you've become despite everything that happened. Because of everything that happened, she corrected. I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't gone through that. I hate that it happened. But I'm grateful for who it made me. That's very mature of you. I had a good example. She smiled. You could have let what Jessica did destroy you. Turn you bitter and angry and afraid of everyone. But you didn't. You rebuilt. You opened your heart to me even though you had every reason to lock it away forever. You showed me that survival isn't enough. You have to figure out how to live after the surviving is done. Stop, I said, getting emotional. You're going to make me cry again. Good. Happy tears are good for the soul. We talked about her plans for college. Her dreams for the future. The apartment she'd have in Boston. The life she was going to build. And I realized that this right here, was the revenge I'd been seeking all along. Not watching Jessica suffer. Not seeing Trevor locked away. Not even the satisfaction of speaking at conferences and using my story to protect others, though that was meaningful too. No, the real revenge was this, living well. Loving completely. Taking what Jessica tried to destroy and building something beautiful from the ruins. She wanted to break me. She wanted to use me up and discard me. Instead, I survived. Thrived. Found more love and purpose in my 60s and 70s than I'd ever known before. That was the ultimate victory. I'm 70 years old now, as I tell you this story. 7 years have passed since that day in the hospital prep room when Lily's scream stopped everything. 7 years since I learned that the daughter I'd loved was willing to kill me for money. 7 years since my life was destroyed and rebuilt into something new. Lily is 21 now. Finishing her junior year at Boston University, excelling in her studies, dating a nice young man named David who treats her with respect and kindness. She calls me every Sunday. Visits when she can. We're still close, maybe closer than many biological mothers and daughters because our relationship was forged in fire. I still do consulting work on medical ethics. Still speak at conferences occasionally, though less often now. I'm slowing down, letting younger advocates take the lead. Mostly, I garden. I volunteer at the library. I have coffee with friends. I watch my granddaughter, my daughter, build the life she deserves. It's a quiet life. A good life. And I earned every peaceful moment of it. Trevor is still in prison. Will be for another 28 years. I don't think about him much anymore. He's become irrelevant to my story, just a villain who tried and failed to destroy me. The organ trafficking network we helped dismantle has stayed dismantled. Dmitry Volkov died in prison 3 years ago, shivved by another inmate, apparently. I didn't feel much about that either. Just another piece of the past settling into place. Sometimes people ask me if I regret staying in contact with the story. If I regret speaking publicly, keeping myself attached to that trauma instead of walking away completely. The answer is no. Because this story, my story, has helped people. I get emails regularly from people who recognized manipulation in their own families because of hearing about mine. From elderly people who learned to protect themselves. From medical professionals who implemented better donor protection protocols. My nightmare became a warning that saved others. That's not nothing. And besides, this is my story. I get to decide what it means, how it ends, what I do with it. Jessica tried to write the ending where I died on an operating table. Where she got away with murder and profited from my love. But I took the pen back. I wrote my own ending. And it goes like this. I survived. I rebuilt. I loved again, deeper and truer than before. I turned my pain into purpose. I took the worst betrayal imaginable and refused to let it define me. I am Eleanor Vincent. I am a mother, a survivor, an advocate. I am more than what was done to me. I am who I chose to become after the worst happened. And that, right there, is how you win. Not by revenge that destroys you in the process. Not by hatred that eats away at your soul. But by living so completely, so fully, so joyfully that the people who tried to break you become nothing but footnotes in your story. They tried to make me a victim. I made myself a victor. If you're watching this, and you've made it all the way through this story, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for understanding that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who hurt us deepest, and that's not our fault. If you've been betrayed by family, I want you to know, you can survive this. You can rebuild. You can find love again, trust again, live again. It won't be easy. There will be nightmares and setbacks and days when you want to give up. But you're stronger than you know. Braver than you think. And you deserve a life that's built on truth and genuine love, not manipulation and lies. So keep going. Keep fighting. Keep choosing yourself when everyone else expects you to sacrifice yourself for them. Your life is worth protecting. Your boundaries are worth defending. Your truth is worth speaking. And remember, the best revenge is living well. I should know. I've been doing it for 7 years now. And I plan to keep doing it for as long as I have breath in my body. Thank you for listening to my story. And please, check the description box below for more stories like this one. Stories of survival, of resilience, of people who refused to let betrayal be their ending. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this if it resonated with you. And comment and let me know where you're watching from, and whether you've ever had to rebuild your life after someone tried to tear it down. We're all in this together. All survivors. All warriors. All people who chose to keep living even when giving up would have been easier. And that's what makes us unbreakable. My name is Eleanor Vincent. This was my story. And it has a happy ending after all.